What if I told you? There were engines so powerful, so dominant, that America had to ban them. Not because of flaws, not because of danger, but because they were too fast, too advanced, and turned every race into a joke. These machines didn't just break records, they shattered every rule the automotive world tried to enforce. One made 657 horsepower in 1964, when most cars barely cracked 200. Another was permanently banned from NASCAR because it made rival teams give up before the race even started. And the scariest part? Some manufacturers sold these banned engines to the public with a warning for off-road use only. In today's video, we're diving into the 7 American engines that got banned, not for being bad, but for being too damn good. And the most shocking part, the real reason they never got the spotlight they truly deserved. Oldsmobile 455 Rocket. You might think, come on, every GM division had a 455, but Oldsmobile's version was a whole different beast. While Chevy and Pontiac chased big horsepower numbers for magazine clout, Oldsmobile quietly focused on something far more dangerous: torque. This monster cranked out 500 pound-feet at just 3,200 RPM. No high revving, no screaming, just effortless low-end grunt that flattened everything next to it. Picture this. You're in a 1970 Olds 442 at a stoplight, next to a hotshot in a 446-pack Challenger. Light turns green. You barely tap the gas, and that Olds just walks away, like a tugboat leaving a speedboat behind. But that quiet power, it got the Rocket killed. By 1971, insurance companies were targeting any car with a 455 badge like it was a weapon. Rates skyrocketed, 3 to 4 times higher than average. One guy recalled having to sell his beloved 442 because his insurance alone cost more than the car, even with a steady factory job. Worse, Oldsmobile had an old man's car image. While GTOs and Chevelles got all the street glory, 442 Rocket owners flew under the radar, even though they were packing more torque than anyone. Today, a matching numbers 455 Rocket W30 is a gold mine. Buick Nailhead 401. From 1959 to 1966, Buick built the Nailhead as an alternative to the high-revving craze. Instead of chasing max RPM, they created a low-end torque monster, 425 pound-feet at just 2,800 RPM and 360 horsepower in the Grand Sport. Its defining trait? Vertically mounted intake and exhaust valves that looked like nails hammered into the cylinder head, hence the nickname Nailhead. But the radical design confused people. Hot rodders slapped in big cams, spun it high, and it got slower, not faster. A mechanic friend who's been building Nailheads for 30 years told me, "Don't treat it like a small block Chevy. Think of it like a truck motor. Gear it right, keep the RPM low, and it'll embarrass anything." Sadly, Buick's old man car reputation meant younger buyers stayed away. The result? One of the best torque motors of the era was forgotten for decades. By the time hot rodders rediscovered the Nailhead in the 80s and 90s, most had already been scrapped. Today, a good condition 401 Nailhead is rarer than a unicorn. Pontiac 455HO. In 1971, the EPA cracked down on emissions. Ralph Nader declared war on performance cars, and insurance rates soared. Most car makers folded. They detuned, derated, and gave up. But not Pontiac. Instead, they upgraded the 455HO 4-bolt main block for strength, bigger valves for flow, and a Rochester quadrajet carb that inhaled up to 800 CFM. The result? 335 horsepower and 480 pound-feet of torque, enough to run 13.9 seconds in the quarter mile. Bone stock, with bias ply tires and a 3-speed automatic. A Pontiac engineer once said, "We knew the party was ending, but we wanted to go out guns blazing." And the 455 HO was that final shot. But even legends fall. By 1975, the last 455 HO made just 200 HP, like watching Muhammad Ali get dropped by a bureaucrat in a cheap suit. Worse still, Pontiac diluted its magic. The 455 HO was thrown into everything, from Trans Ams to Grand Prix, even wagons. When your grocery getter shares an engine with your muscle car, the mystique dies. Today, a numbers-matching 455 HO Trans Am, or GTO, is rolling gold, because it stands for something rare, an engine that said goodbye, with a roar. Chrysler 426 Hemi. When it comes to racing destruction, no engine haunts the track like the 426 Hemi, nicknamed the Elephant for its massive size and terrifying power. In 1964, Richard Petty brought his Plymouth Hemi to the Daytona 500. During practice, Ford and GM teams were stunned. The Hemi's lap times were way ahead of the field. On race day, Chrysler went 1, 2, 3, Petty in front, the rest just spectators. Specs: 425 horsepower, 490 pound-feet of torque, and hemispherical combustion chambers that optimized airflow. This wasn't just an engine, it was a weapon of dominance, and that dominance became its crime. NASCAR panicked. Bill France, the founder, banned the 426 Hemi in 1965 for being too specialized. Truth is, Ford and GM threatened to pull out. Chrysler clapped back, "Can't race it? We'll sell it." Thus, the Street Hemi was born. A track-bred engine made street legal, even if it cost $1,000, nearly a third of a car's price then. Only about 11,000 Street Hemis were ever built, making them mechanical holy grails today. Ford 427 Cammer. This wasn't an engine banned for failing. It was banned for being too advanced, too dominant, so much so that NASCAR had to shut it down before it ever hit the track. The Ford 427 SOHC Cammer. In 1964, after being humiliated at the Daytona 500 by Richard Petty and his Plymouth HEMI, Henry Ford II was furious. He gave his engineers just 90 days to build something powerful enough to strike back. The result? A masterpiece. They took the legendary 427 side-oiler block, added a single overhead cam, hemispherical combustion chambers, and a timing chain nearly 6 feet long, requiring its own space inside the engine. Output: 616 horsepower at 7,000 RPM, and with dual carbs up to 657 horsepower in 1964. A Ford engineer recalled, "It could rev to 8,000 RPM all day and still beg for more." But NASCAR wasn't amused. Bill France called it too European, too specialized, and banned the Cammer outright. Behind the scenes, pressure from GM and Chrysler played a role. NASCAR couldn't afford to let Ford dominate. Outraged, Ford pivoted. They built 500 Cammer engines and sold them to the public with a label saying, "For off-road use only." The result? The Cammer became a drag racing legend, especially in the world of funny cars. Today, a working Cammer engine can fetch over $100,000, and most are now in museums or private collections. The Ford 427 Cammer wasn't just an engine. It was a dream killed by politics, and had it been allowed to race, NASCAR history might have been written very differently. Chevrolet ZL1427. The ZL1427 wasn't banned by rules or politics. It was banned by its price tag. And that's exactly what turned it into an ultra-rare legend. The Chevrolet ZL1427. In 1969, you walk into a Chevy dealership to buy a Camaro SS 396. Base price, around $2,700. But then the salesman leans in and says, "Hey, want a real race motor? ZL1, 427 cubic inches, all aluminum, 500 horsepower, just $4,160 extra." Anyone hearing that would spit out their coffee. The option cost more than the car itself, and more than many people's entire yearly salary. But the ZL1 was no joke. It was a true Can-Am racing engine with forged pistons, steel crankshaft, aluminum heads, and an aluminum block, 100 pounds lighter than cast iron. Combined with near-perfect weight distribution, the ZL1 Camaro could run the 1/4 mile in 11.6 seconds, bone stock, on street tires. Because it was a race engine, it came with no warranty. If you blew it up, too bad. It also used solid lifters, which needed adjustment every 5,000 miles, something most street drivers never knew. Only 69 ZL1 Camaros were ever sold. That's fewer than the number of Bugatti Veyrons in the world. Today, a numbers-matching ZL1 is worth $500,000 to $1 million, far more than most Americans' retirement funds. Cadillac 500. Some folks might be surprised to see Cadillac on this list, but make no mistake, the Cadillac 500 was the ultimate hidden monster of the muscle car era. Debuting in 1970, the Cadillac 500 became the largest mass-produced engine in American history, 8.2 liters, making 400 horsepower and 550 pound-feet at just 3,500 RPM, 3,000 RPM. More torque than a modern Hellcat, stuffed into an Eldorado with velvet seats and chrome ashtrays. Imagine this: a guy pulls up in a Corvette LS5, revving hard. You're next to him in a Cadillac, suit and tie, smooth jazz playing. Light turns green, and you leave him in the dust like he hit reverse. That quiet confidence was its strength. Cadillac never bragged. No flashy ads. They stayed under the radar, even from the EPA and insurers, until emissions laws clamped down. By 1976, the same engine made only 190 horsepower, like Superman, stripped of his powers. Worse, GM stuffed the 500 into everything: Eldorados, Fleetwoods, limos, even hearses. When your funeral car shares an engine with your personal coupe, the mystique vanishes. Today, a 1970 Eldorado with an untouched 500 engine is collector gold. The engines on this list aren't just machines, they're living memories, proof of an era when engineering, passion, and raw ambition ruled the road. We may never see engines like these built again, but as long as people remember, restore, and respect them, they'll never truly die. Now it's your turn. Which engine shocked you the most? And if you had the choice, which one would you park in your garage? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one. And if you love forgotten legends and banned beasts that were just too powerful, don't forget to like this video, share it, and subscribe, because there are still so many untold stories waiting to be brought back to life.